Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a field that kind of sits right at the crossroads of, well, math, computers, and health biostatistics.
hmm
If you're curious about this area, maybe even looking to jump in, you probably know it demands a solid grip on statistical methods,
Definitely.
a real feel for biological data, and, the skill to apply some pretty complex quantitative tools to really vital health research.
Absolutely. You can think of biostatisticians as sort of bridge builders. They translate all this complex data into insights people can actually use.
Insights that affect drug development, public health,
Yeah, policy, the whole lot. It's critical work.
and to really get a handle on what's truly key in this field, we're zeroing in on something quite specific, very practical, actually.
Okay.
It's a piece from the Kaplan Community Career Center, and it lists key interview questions specifically for biostatisticians.
Okay. Like a cheat sheet for what interviewers are looking for.
Sort of. Think of these questions more like an X-ray, maybe, revealing the core skills, the competencies they're after.
Right. So our mission here in this deep dive is to unpack why these particular questions get asked.
Exactly. What skills, what knowledge, what real-world experience are they trying to uncover?
It's like a shortcut then to understanding the essential toolkit you need for this kind of role.
Precisely. And the Kaplan source itself says, look, these aren't just random trivia. They're designed to test both your technical chops
hmm Your theoretical knowledge.
and your ability to actually apply that knowledge in, real research situations.
So they're digging into the depth of your expertise, how fluent you are with the standard software,
Mm-hmm.
and fundamentally, can you actually contribute meaningfully to research projects?
Makes sense. Okay, so let's jump right into the first big skill area these questions highlight, statistical software proficiency.
The foundation.
Yeah. The Kaplan piece kicks off by asking about your experience with essential packages, like R or SAS.
Well, yeah, you pretty much can't function as a biostatistician today without being really comfortable in at least one of those.
Yeah.
Power and SAS are kind of the big ones.
The source really stresses they're needed for core tasks, right? Data analysis, making visualizations.
Building models, yeah, all that. They do also mention STATA and SPSS.
Right.
Which pop up more in certain niches, maybe some social sciences or specific clinical research areas.
So what's the interviewer really trying to figure out here?
It's not just, have you heard of R? It's, can you actually use it effectively? Can you take raw data, clean it, analyze it, do what needs to be done for a real research question?
Got it. It's about practical application, using the tools. Okay, moving on. The second key area, study design and sample size calculation.
Oh, this is huge. This happens before you even see any data.
Right, the planning stage.
Exactly. The source points out you need hands-on experience across different study types. So observational studies,
Like cohort studies, case control.
yeah, those, but also experimental studies and, crucially important, clinical trials.
And sample size.
Vital, absolutely vital. You need to know the methods for calculating the right sample size. Because think about it.
If it's too small,
You might completely miss a real effect, a real difference. But if it's too large,
you're wasting time, money, resources.
precisely. So the interviewer is checking. Do you understand how to structure the research properly? Can you design a study that gives valid, reliable answers tailored to the actual question being asked?
That makes total sense. Bad design in, bad results out, no matter how fancy your analysis later.
You got it.
Okay, now the questions seem to get into more specific analysis techniques. The third area is analyzing time-to-event data.
Survival analysis.
Yeah, questions on that and Cox regression.
Super important in health research. We're often interested in the time until something happens.
Like how long a patient survives after a treatment. Or maybe time until a medical device fails.
Exactly, those kinds of things. The Kaplan source specifically brings up Kaplan-Meier curves.
Right, for visualizing the survival probability.
Over time, yeah. And Cox regression. That's for modeling how different factors like the treatment received or maybe age or gender affect that survival time.
And it handles patients who drop out or finish the study without the event happening.
It accounts for that censoring, which is a key challenge with this data. So the interviewer wants to know, do you get the unique issues here? Can you apply these standard, widely used methods correctly? And crucially, do you understand their assumptions and limitations?
Okay, so it's definitely more complex than just a simple yes-no outcome. It's the when.
Adds a whole different dimension.
Right. Let's dig into the fourth skill area then. Modeling complex or structured data. This gets into things like linear and nonlinear mixed effects models.
Yes. These are your go-to tools when the data isn't just simple independent observations, which, let's be honest, is often the case in real-world health data.
What kind of situations are we talking about?
Well, the source mentions cluster data. Think patients grouped within different hospitals or students within schools.
Okay, so the observations aren't independent.
Exactly. Or longitudinal data, where you measure the same person repeatedly over time. A standard linear model just doesn't work well there because it assumes independence.
So how do mixed effects models help?
They let you account for that correlation or clustering. They include what we call fixed effects, things that apply generally, like maybe the overall effect of a drug, and random effects, which capture the variability between the groups or individuals, like differences in outcomes just because people are in different hospitals.
And nonlinear mixed models.
Just extends that idea for situations where the relationship between variables isn't a straight line, it's more complex, curved.
So the interviewer is checking if you can handle data that doesn't fit the simple textbook assumptions.
Pretty much. Can you recognize these structures? Can you choose and apply the right model? And do you understand its assumptions and how the estimation works?
Okay, tool for nested data, data over time. Got it. Fifth key skill area, the captain piece highlights. Bayesian statistical methods.
Right, Bayesian approaches.
Yeah.
This offers a different way of thinking about statistics compared to the traditional frequentist methods most people learn first.
How so? What's the advantage?
Well, it's particularly useful when you want to formally incorporate prior knowledge or existing evidence into your analysis, or when you're dealing with really complex models.
And the source mentions a specific technique.
Yeah, Markov-Chain Monte Carlo,
Yeah.
MCMC. Bit of a mouthful. But basically, it's a computational workhorse.
Meaning
It's a set of algorithms used to estimate the parameters in complex Bayesian models where you just can't calculate things directly. It's simulation-based.
And where would you use that?
Kaplan lists things like hierarchical modeling, which actually ties back nicely to the mixed effects models we just talked about, just from a Bayesian angle, and also model selection, figuring out which model fits best.
So what's being tested here?
Your grasp of the Bayesian way of thinking, first off, and then your practical experience with these kinds of computational methods like MCMC. They're becoming more and more important for tackling really cutting-edge problems.
Interesting. So having that different statistical perspective plus the computational tools. Okay. Finally, we get to a skill that maybe sounds less mouthy, but is just absolutely essential.
Communication.
Communication, yes. The sixth question area is about data visualization and data reporting.
You could have the most brilliant analysis in the world, but if you can't explain it clearly,
It's useless.
pretty much.
Right.
Especially when your audience might be clinicians or researchers from other fields or even policymakers. They need to understand what you found.
The source mentions creating standard plots, bar charts, scatter plots.
Heat maps, too. Often using R or SAS again. Those tools come back. But it's more than just making a graph look nice.
What else?
It's about understanding best practices for reporting data. How do you structure a report effectively? What details must you include? How do you translate complex stats into something, well, digestible and clear for different people?
People with maybe very different levels of statistical knowledge.
Exactly. The interviewer is probing your ability to craft a narrative from the numbers, a clear, compelling story that actually helps the people make informed decisions.
Communication really is the final crucial step for impact. Makes sense. Before we wrap this part up, the Kaplan source also notes these skills aren't just for one job title.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
They list several related roles where this toolkit is valuable.
Like what?
Things like biomathematician, biostatistical consultant, clinical biostatistician, NGS biostatistician, that's someone focused on next-generation sequencing data, very specialized.
Okay.
Research biostatistician, statistical scientist. It shows how versatile this core quantitative foundation is.
Right. So pulling it all together then, these 6 areas we've walked through based on those Kaplan interview questions. Software skills, study design, handling specific data like time to event, tackling complex structures with mixed models, knowing about Bayesian methods, and finally, clear communication.
That really does map out the essential capabilities, doesn't it, for a modern biostatistician?
Yeah. Understanding these gives you, the listener, a really clear picture of what's needed to work effectively with health data, find those meaningful insights.
And insights that are reliable, that can actually drive research and practice forward.
Definitely. So here's something to maybe mull over. Given the sheer range of methods and data types we've just touched on, prompted by only 6 core interview questions. I mean, clinical trials, complex modeling, time to event, Bayesian thinking, clear reporting. What does all that suggest? What does it say about the constant learning curve and maybe the sheer breadth of analytical thinking that's required today to really push the boundaries in health research?
It's a dynamic field, that's for sure. Always evolving, always new challenges.
Keeps you on your toes.